Before there were nations, the world spoke only in whispers of stone.
From silence and soil, a kingdom was dreamed into light.
Every carved line carried the breath of a forgotten empire.
Time became a vine, binding gods and men together.
Light returned each morning to prove the soul still endures.
Here the river carved destiny, shaping hearts and kingdoms alike.
Life and empire both rose from the patient rhythm of water. Hands of today still seek the pulse within the past.
Even shadows remember what the sun once sang.
The heavens witnessed kings rise beneath banners of dawn.
Power was written in stone, yet destiny in dust. Even in tears, the kingdom learned the art of grace.
Faith carried the ember of Angkor through every storm. Peace breathed through centuries like smoke returning to sky.
What was once conquest now survives as memory. Past and present weave together, unbroken as the earth.
Each flame is a promise that history will breathe again.
From ashes of time, the spirit of Cambodia awakens. Heaven mirrored earth, and earth dared to dream heaven.
This is the story of Cambodia, a song of stone becoming light.
Before kings had names, rivers were the first to rule. Here humanity built its first memory of home upon water. In the clay, hands whispered their first prayers to time.
Life began where water met patience and song.
Fire became language, smoke the first messenger of dreams.
Leadership was born not of power, but of courage shared.
The sound of unity spread long before borders did.
Thus dawned Funan, the cradle of Khmer civilization. Across oceans came words that would shape belief. Knowledge sailed upriver, and faith followed its wake.
Faith demanded stone, where hearts once bent like reed. Prosperity bloomed upon trade winds, whispering of the world. Legends say, her crowd was forged from dawn itself. Its power flowed not from conquest, but connection. But every tide that rises must one day break. Funan sank into shadow, leaving only echoes on stone. Yet from decay, new voices began to rise.
Out of silence came Chenla, fierce and unyielding.
They sought to rebuild heaven from the fragments of memory.
The dream of unity moved as swiftly as the rain.
Each pillar was a promise that divinity would return.
Faith stitched the torn fabric of empires.
The earth became temple, each seed an offering.
Stone remembered what humans feared to forget.
His gaze reached farther than his armies ever could. Art was prayer, set free into motion.
Ambition spread like sunlight on new horizons.
The serpent of water became symbol of royal might.
Glory trembled beneath the weight of its own storms.
Even kingdoms built on faith are tested by pride.
Nature reclaims what empire forgets.
In silence, he hears the voice of all fallen kings.
Centuries move like shadows across immortal stone. Unity fractured. The river now carried two reflections.
Empires die not in war, but in forgetting.
Yet every ending hums the prelude of rebirth.
From tranquil waters, a new kingdom dreamt of heaven.
Foundation met faith, and the earth trembled awake.
Sweat turned to scripture. Labor became legend. He sees not walls, but eternity being built. Civilization began to sculpt the face of the divine.
Vision became the truest mark of leadership.
Even the sky seemed to kneel before ambition. Guardians stood between man and myth.
Beauty became law. Symmetry, its scripture.
The universe itself was redrawn upon Khmer soil. Nature lent her power to the hands of dreamers.
Innocence carried the echo of ancient pride.
Land and faith became inseparable, like breath and heart. Each heartbeat of the kingdom echoed with devotion.
Between heaven and earth, Cambodia found her voice.
The nation was not born in silence, but in song.
The dream spread like fire through fields of faith.
Creation demanded both patience and pain.
Blessing became the heartbeat of every foundation.
Water was empire's mirror, ever flowing, never still.
Here, The heart of Angkor began to beat.
Destiny spoke softly, yet all bowed to listen.
Power learns humility beneath the roar of nature.
Compassion tempered the crown of command.
Harmony rose where conquest once sought glory.
Strength without virtue was never true power. Every journey was pilgrimage toward divinity. Words became immortal when carved into silence.
Illumination was both ritual and destiny.
Pride and faith stood side by side, radiant and fragile.
Order emerged like a poem written upon earth. The world was centered upon faith's geometry.
Heaven wept in joy upon her mirrored image.
Gratitude kept the stones from falling asleep.
The kingdom breathed as one vast prayer. Even light itself became their chosen material.
Mystery wrapped the empire in eternal allure.
Knowledge anchored memory deeper than time. Prosperity was devotion rewarded by earth.
The next generation carried the scent of the divine.
Wisdom echoed through branches older than kings. Night too became sacred, reflection of all light.
And thus, Angkor prepared to rise beyond mortal reach.
The birth of a civilization destined to touch the stars.
Morning rose not only on fields, but on a nation becoming.
Every path from Angkor was built to lead both outward and within. Devotion fed both the gods and the people who served them. Beauty became the empire's eternal scripture.
Knowledge from distant lands found new meaning in Khmer tongue.
Water learned to obey wisdom more than gravity.
Labor turned to ritual beneath the watching sun. Each movement mirrored the struggle between chaos and grace.
Words sought permanence in the silence of stone.
Prosperity reflected the heavens that blessed it.
Even storms bowed to the empire's will.
Strength watched silently over the sleeping capital.
Power was nothing without the stillness to hold it.
The kingdom's heart beat in rhythm with the tide.
Sound itself became a bridge between mortal and divine.
In detail, they found the doorway to eternity.
The young learned early that light belongs to everyone.
Celebration was remembrance, dressed in color and sound.
Humility crowned greatness more firmly than gold.
Even in floods, the kingdom saw only renewal.
A young Caucasian non-binary person named Faith, with an inquisitive expression, had learned the architecture of the sky.
Wisdom grew quietly in the shade of devotion.
The universe itself seemed to answer in gold.
Hands repeated what hearts had already known. Beauty sustains belief.
Solitude guarded the flame of awakening.
Heaven and earth merged in shimmering accord.
Greatness had taken root and dared to rise eternal.
Each sound declared that history had begun.
Even the smallest lights joined the empire's hymn.
Thus dawned the kingdom of light. Cambodia's soul awakened. The empire awoke as heaven touched the earth in stone.
Angkor was not built upon land, but off faith itself.
Every stone bore a heartbeat, every breath a prayer.
Creation rang like thunder across the centuries.
Beauty became the empire's silent anthem.
His eyes measured eternity, not distance. Devotion traveled further than any army could march.
Grace itself became the empire's scripture. The universe found geometry in their prayer. Water obeyed their wisdom, flowing where dreams demanded. Light itself became loyal to the kingdom.
Sound rose like wind through the pillars of heaven.
A mortal crowd himself within the reflection of gods.
History itself danced upon the temple walls.
Heaven mirrored earth, flawless in devotion.
Every ascent defied gravity, both of stone and soul. Power bowed before purity, for both were divine. Joy was given a body, forever in motion.
Angkor mastered the sky by mastering water. Freedom became sacred when seen from such height.
Faith traveled by footsteps more than by conquest.
Greatness required both vision and waiting.
Innocence survived where empire met eternity.
Every ruler first learned to listen before commanding. Nature conspired with divinity to guard this light.
The sky itself seemed written in Khmer script.
Serpents of myth became the arteries of empire.
Memory was not told here. It was sculpted. Light knelt before silence in holy reverence.
Devotion breathed even through the smallest gesture.
Time bowed to design, and the gods smiled.
Law became poetry under hands that revered order.
Abundance was their offering back to the earth.
Even war gleamed with sacred purpose.
Compassion remained the empire's hidden strength.
The night learned to glow in rhythm with their grace.
Power knelt, remembering it was borrowed from eternity.
New visions stirred within the silence of dawn. The dream continued through unbroken hands.
Humanity and nature sang in the same key.
Even chaos painted beauty upon the sky. Trade carried the empire's voice beyond horizons. Diplomacy became theater upon marble floors.
Stone remembered victories better than memory. Divinity took human form. Compassion carved in calm.
The Bodhisattva king dreamed of saving his world in stone. Mercy became the mightiest crown of kings.
Power turned outward to heal instead of conquer.
The empire's greatness was measured in shared bread. The divine king stepped barefoot through mortal sorrow.
Enlightenment became architecture, peace given form.
Compassion looked outward through every gaze of stone. Majesty stood silent, yet its song filled the earth. Faith found reflection in every smiling face. Nature embraced devotion instead of devouring it.
Mercy became the empire's most enduring monument.
He answered war not with fury, but with silence.
Heaven wept, not in grief, but in reverence. Glory spread across the horizon, like sunrise, eternal.
The world came to Angkor as students to a teacher.
Prosperity became the music of power's grace.
The heavens themselves were illustrated in Khmer hue.
Enlightenment outshone the empire's crown.
Their echoes called time to stand still and listen.
Beauty lingered long after day had gone.
Memory became inheritance passed by firelight.
Every wall was a library of faith.
Even stillness carried motion within.
Joy and sorrow both washed clean in the same rain.
Heaven and earth shared one constellation of faith.
Eternity measured itself through shifting light.
The empire celebrated not conquest, but harmony.
Life was the truest victory of all.
Even night wore a crown of light.
Words became bridges from the mortal to divine.
Dreams ascended like stars returning home.
Compassion's gaze watched over a sleeping empire. Even gods must learn the art of impermanence. The forest began to whisper of time's return.
Nature reclaims not in anger, but in patience.
Every empire carries the seed of its dusk.
Light must fade so that faith may renew. Change approaches with the sound of wings.
The land remembers balance before glory.
Greatness fades, but never truly vanishes.
Even ruin learned to shimmer. Pride departed quietly, leaving silence behind.
Faith refused extinction, surviving.
The empire became legend under the canopy of time.
Even stars must set before they rise again. The light only hides, never dies.
The present still carries the rhythm of the past.
Life returned to where eternity once slept.
Innocence reclaimed what ambition abandoned.
Knowledge, once lost, begins to speak again.
Every dawn remembers where it began.
Fragility rests upon the shoulders of eternity. The curious light of humanity seeks its reflection.
The empire of light still breathes beneath the forest song.
Thus ended the age of gold, but not the spirit within. Even in silence, the city still whispered its devotion to the sky.
Water remembered the hands that once commanded the clouds.
Devotion survives best in small, patient acts. Faith renews its health beneath the gentlest touch. Prosperity bowed its head before gratitude.
Glory aged into story, and story into song.
The empire's reach stretched further than its shadow could follow.
Destiny always moves in the footsteps of rain. Even victory trembles beneath the breath of change.
The light of conquest burns shortest when kindled by pride.
Sanctity hides itself when the world forgets its peace.
Beauty and sorrow shared the same reflection.
When walls crumble, only prayer remains unbroken.
Compassion bends where power cannot.
Greatness wavers on the edge between glory and grief. Resilience is the quiet empire that never falls.
The stone smiled, knowing all power is temporary. Nature waited centuries just to breathe again. Pride walked away, leaving silence to reign. The forest reclaimed what faith had borrowed.
Life returned softly, without asking permission.
Memory floats here, weightless, eternal.
Hope survives by learning to walk on water.
Stillness itself became the empire's final prayer.
The past does not die. It breathes between the leaves.
When the forest closed its hands, history fell asleep inside.
The empire of light sank beneath the sea of time.
What vanishes in sight endures in spirit.
The living carry what the ancient left unsaid.
Though empires fall, light forever remembers its way home. The light that once ruled heaven began to flicker in mist.
Even reflection trembled beneath the weight of memory.
The earth withheld its blessing as silence grew louder.
Power faltered first in words before it fell in stone.
Heaven sighed, and the ceiling of faith gave way.
The empire armed itself against the shadow of tomorrow.
Time galloped faster than any warning could reach.
From the west came thunder, wearing another king's name.
Fear gathered where faith once stood unshaken.
Even gods seemed to cry beneath the storm of men. The mirror of paradise now burned with mortal fire.
Destiny screamed through every arrow's flight.
Empires fall first in the silence of a mother's cry.
Even prayer struggled to rise above the storm.
Peace watched quietly while the world unlearned its name.
The sacred ground turned to echo and flame. Eternity cracked, releasing the breath of centuries.
Even a god king must learn the taste of exile.
History erases gently, one heartbeat at a time.
Nature reclaimed her throne with quiet grace.
The river carried both memory and mourning.
Faith endures, though its voice now trembles.
Home became movement, horizon their only temple.
Silence grew gardens where sorrow once stood. Compassion smiled, even as the world burned.
Remembering became the final act of resistance.
The land mourned in silence, fertile with tears.
War leaves no victor, only witnesses.
The sky learned sorrow by watching us.
The earth exhaled, closing the chapter of men. Names erode, but meaning endures in moss. The heart of empire wandered in search of breath.
Commerce replaced conquest as lifeblood renewed.
Faith learned humility in smaller sanctuaries.
The sacred retreated into the rhythm of daily life.
Peace was only an interlude between storms.
Diplomacy became survival, wrapped in ceremony.
Sovereignty bent but refused to break.
Even captivity found moments to glow.
Life persisted, stubborn as the river itself.
New worlds pressed against the parchment of the old.
Winds carried strangers, bearing both gifts and chains.
Wonder preceded warning in every age.
Faith met faith beneath the same uncertain sun.
Fate arrived, not gently, but with the roar of waves.
The sleeping empire stirred beneath foreign eyes. Memory sailed west, reborn as discovery.
The past revealed itself through patience, not conquest.
Stone blinked awake, surprised to still be sacred.
The forgotten God became legend once more.
The jungle washed sorrow into resurrection.
Joy returned quietly, carried by rhythm and rain.
laughter crown the temples of the past.
Faith inhaled, remembering its eternal breath.
Beauty returned by remembering how to endure. The empire slept, yet its pulse never ceased. Hands of the present reached gently toward the past. Healing history is itself an act of faith.
The spirit of Angkor found a new name to wear.
The cycle turned. Darkness bowed to dawn once more.
The story of loss became the song of survival.
History does not die. It simply waits to be read. Life flows eternal through the veins of remembrance.
The light that faded has become the dawn of a people.
What survived empire was humanity itself.
Even in ruin, the kingdom of light endures within every heart. Twilight carries the memory of day into night.
Heaven still remembers the pattern of Khmer dreams. Even in darkness, faith glows inward.
The empire sleeps, but the light waits to rise again. Even heroes turn to dust, yet their echoes guard the night.
The forest learned to write its own scripture in green.
Functional. Silence gained wings where prayer once soared.
The heavens still visit those who remember to look down.
He saves what beauty the centuries leave behind. The river still breathes the names of vanished kings. Memory becomes faith when spoken with reverence.
Hope survives best in humble flames.
The earth rehearses resurrection with every monsoon.
The past returns quietly through honest hands.
Discovery is merely remembrance reborn in another tongue.
Light captured what time tried to erase.
The West called it lost. Cambodia called it home.
The keepers of memory never surrendered their watch.
Compassion greets the curious without judgment.
The future learns the alphabet of eternity.
Hands rebuild what hearts have never abandoned.
Renewal climbs quietly upon the shoulders of ruin.
Education is memory
organized into tomorrow.
Pilgrims change, but the path remains the same.
Still water keeps the reflection of every age. Civilizations never die. They simply change their rhythm. The sky rehearses the drama of impermanence.
Day's last breath carries the perfume of centuries. The stars above and below agree to remember. Glory dissolves, leaving behind the essence of grace.
He prays not for return, but for understanding.
The fading glory ends where light begins again.
The empire awoke beneath foreign eyes that called it wonder.
Imagination bridged continents with a single line.
Measurement replaced worship as the new ritual of awe. The sleeping empire woke inside foreign eyes. The past stood still while new masters named the land.
Faith answered fame with the calm of continuity.
Modernity arrived with smoke and silence. Cleansing comes to stone before it comes to men. Civilization came dressed in uniforms and doubt.
Faith listened, wondering if it still spoke the louder tongue.
Borders redrew what rivers had once refused to separate.
Ink bound the future more tightly than chains.
Progress hummed through streets not yet ready to listen. New melodies entered hearts still tuned to drums. Words of others began shaping Khmer dreams.
Knowledge arrived wrapped in another alphabet. Royalty endured beneath borrowed light.
Courage is faith, standing still beneath thunder.
Old voices wove themselves through the rhythm of change.
Hope returns in the shimmer of small lights.
Even water learned a new accent.
Music teaches sorrow how to breathe.
Two heavens shared one horizon.
Each dawn rehearses the art of beginning again.
Language whispered resistance where silence was safer.
Peace always finds the tallest perch.
Value changed shape, but not hunger.
Life filled the silence history left behind.
Hands of strangers preserved what time nearly forgave.
Joy is the truest restoration.
Cambodia became a masterpiece, displayed behind glass.
He locks the past, only to guard its light.
Iron veins carried both promise and control.
Ambition learned to walk between two worlds.
Modernity sparkled where tradition knelt.
Dreams began to flicker in black and silver.
Ideas travel faster than armies.
Grace became an artifact framed for admiration.
Culture survived by learning the art of translation.
Rain washed away arrogance, but not authority.
The world's storms cast long shadows on Indochina.
They spoke softly of a future they would never see.
One empire left, another arrived, wearing steel.
Faith disguised itself to survive the noise.
Freedom rained from skies no one could trust.
Compassion refused to drown.
Joy returned uncertain, like sunlight after storm.
A young monarch inherited the echoes of centuries.
Hope, once captive, began to breathe again.
Modern Cambodia rode toward its uncertain dawn.
Identity unfurled, fragile but radiant.
Pride returned, stone by stone.
Heritage learned to speak in modern colors.
Grace became language where politics failed.
Voices of change echoed between paper and tide.
Freedom was rehearsed first in conversation. Tradition and progress shared the same restless light.
Music carried rebellion across rice fields.
Threads of patience spun into flags of destiny. Freedom is signed in quiet rooms before it sings in streets.
History returned in a river of fire and joy.
The kingdom awoke, calling its soul back home.
In laughter, the nation learned to walk again.
Faith rejoiced in hands younger than memory. The past bowed gracefully to bless the future. Stories once whispered, now shown upon silver screens.
For a moment, history exhaled.
Richard entered the classroom as the final lesson.
Old light accepted its new guardians.
Peace returned quietly, like a familiar melody.
The air itself felt reborn.
Cambodia had refound its rhythm.
The city,
mirrored the serenity it once lost.
The spirit of Angkor glowed through modern glass.
Yesterday's empire walked beside tomorrow's hope.
Freedom finally sounded like home.
Light returned to its oldest temple.
Power once again knelt to peace.
The river carried liberty through its veins.
Words tried to capture what hearts already knew. Prayer crowned independence with humility.
Dawn had finally kept its promise.
From shadows, Cambodia rose singing.
The circle closed. The spirit endured, unbroken. Colonial night had passed, leaving dawn upon its ruins. From captivity, light found its language again.
Celebration softened into reflection as freedom met responsibility.
Voices of youth trembled between gratitude and demand.
Leadership felt heavier once silence returned. The calm of peace carried the scent of coming storms.
Tomorrow was inked in optimism and doubt.
The countryside echoed dreams born in cities.
Education became the quiet revolution of hearts.
Prosperity returned wearing a suit instead of armor.
Tradition found its voice again through electricity and air.
Craft became the memory of identity woven by hand.
The city dreamed like a mirror of its ancient self.
Freedom tasted of coffee, ink, and idealism.
Power returned to those still learning to wield it.
Peace always fears the echo of war. Shadows lengthened from lands too close to ignore.
Progress moved forward, but not always together.
Freedom proved hungrier than anyone expected.
Hope became spoken through clenched fists.
The melody of unity began to break into discord. His nation's harmony trembled upon a single breath.
Influence returned, dressed now as friendship.
Order returned, with footsteps too heavy for peace.
Truth became smoke, carried by uncertain winds.
A nation waved farewell to its symbol of unity.
Freedom learned the price of its own echo.
Revolution crept quietly.
beneath the noise of celebration.
Faith held its breath, waiting for dawn.
The river carried warning, long before it carried tears. Compassion steadied hands, trembling with prophecy.
The light dimmed slowly, too proud to admit fear.
Even truth hesitated, unsure who would listen.
History inhaled sharply before the storm to come.
The shadow of peace folded into the wings of war.
The nation stood between memory and fire, unaware of how near both lay.
The dream of freedom began to tremble in the noise of guns.
Unity cracked beneath the boots of its own sons.
Go with me. Don't look back.
Words turned to dust, swallowed by uncertainty.
The countryside burned, while no one watched the sky. A nation began walking toward nowhere. Glory bowed its head beneath the weight of its own shadow. Innocence collapsed where ideology took root.
The land wept long before its people could.
Faith tried to cover its ears.
Hope retreated behind curtains of flame. The sacred fell silent under the language of guns. Knowledge fled its classrooms, leaving ghosts behind.
The city glowed like a dying star.
Revolution arrived, wearing the mask of deliverance.
Liberation turned to exodus in a single breath.
Civilization packed its silence and left.
The nation walked backward into darkness.
Time itself was shot and buried.
Labor replaced life as the only rhythm permitted. Ideology planted seeds that bore no fruit.
Power learned to live without mercy.
Childhood ended beneath the shadow of command.
She became history's witness and its wound.
Borders of fear replaced borders of land.
Silence became the truest confession.
Humanity survived in the smallest gestures of defiance.
Knowledge hid in skin when pages were forbidden.
Fear became the only light to follow.
Faith chose the earth over extinction.
The water carried both death and memory. The soul learned to disappear to survive. The sky reflected the hell below. The land became the nation's unmarked diary.
Grief whispered where mourning was forbidden.
Even dawn hesitated to return.
Realization comes late to those who obey.
The world turned away, and time stood still.
The living became messengers for the dead.
Hope learned to sleep on borrowed ground.
Tomorrow looked like another country.
Compassion returned as an accent of strangers.
Faith rose quietly through cracked earth.
Humanity gathered what history had scattered.
Love remembered itself, even in exile.
Renewal began not in cities, but in soil.
Knowledge returned, like dawn breaking through dust.
Words rose like seeds, reborn from darkness.
Hands remembered how to connect what fear had divided.
History exhaled, cautious but alive.
Imagination became the nation's first medicine.
Language found its way home.
Faith rose from ash, step by step.
Rivers remember peace, even when people forget.
The soul of Cambodia began to hum again.
Life is patient. It waits beyond every ending.
Innocence returned without permission.
The kingdom of light opened its eyes once more.
Gratitude replaced despair as the truest faith.
Renewal always begins in silence. The present carried the weight of forgiveness.
Song became both requiem and rebirth.
Remembering became the nation's new religion.
The future bent to honor the pain that shaped it.
Walls that once screamed now teach.
The living borrow courage from the written dead.
Peace never forgets where it was lost. Memory became education, and sorrow turned to promise.
The river forgave before anyone asked.
Commerce became the rhythm of recovery.
Color returned where history had gone gray.
Grief found its beauty in ritual.
The kingdom began to sound like itself again.
Memory turned into vow.
Freedom returned, fragile as paper, bright as flame.
Courage sometimes looks like waiting in the storm.
The sound of surrender was softer than applause.
Cambodia remembered how to breathe.
Tradition stepped carefully back into the light.
Joy finally dared to be loud again.
Forgiveness travels where words cannot.
Life rewarded those who refused to stop planting.
The heartbeat of the nation found its rhythm again.
Grace returned from silence, wearing its golden crown. Cambodia stood reborn between ruin and resurrection.
Light passed hand to hand, became legacy.
The future began in the breath after forgiveness.
Peace, at last, learned to bloom.
The past and present finally knelt together. Compassion became the crown that outlived all kings.
The light of memory rose, gentle but unbroken.
Darkness surrendered without a fight.
The soul of Cambodia sang again through its people.
The river's reflection smiled. It had survived it all.
Unity returned softly, barefoot, and sincere.
The nation's tomorrow arrived, running and free. The kingdom of light endured, reborn from fire.
From ashes and tears, Cambodia remembered how to shine. From ruin, the city inhaled and began to live again.
Restoration started with the smallest hands. Faith rebuilt itself, plank by plank.
Knowledge returned like sunrise through broken windows.
The earth forgave first.
Compassion traded robes for medicine.
Connection became the new architecture of hope.
Labor turned holy beneath their calm voices.
Life painted over memory without erasing it.
Heritage hummed softly to the rhythm of the present.
Technology knelt before tradition to listen.
Commerce became celebration again.
Ingenuity replaced despair with purpose.
Sound reclaimed the air from silence.
Grace remembered itself.
Beauty returned as both teacher and lesson.
The past and future finally shared one song.
Joy became prayer in motion.
Wisdom walked back through its rightful door.
Remembrance learned to bloom.
Tradition stood again, steady and forgiving.
Laughter healed where slogans once echoed.
National pride learned humility through loss. Continuity passed quietly from palm to palm.
Progress bowed gracefully to heritage.
The rhythm of survival turned joyful again.
Faith and science shared the same blueprint.
Technology became the new lingua of memory.
The world returned, not as conqueror, but as witness.
Art rose luminous from centuries of ash. Healing continued in quiet repetition.
Modernity hummed in harmony with the divine.
Every step looked like forgiveness made visible.
Sound turned memory into celebration.
Creativity became the architecture of healing.
Each flame a wish that history stay gentle.
Color returned to prayer.
Economy turned human again.
Words gave the people back their future.
The reward for patience is always abundance.
Freedom finally looked ordinary.
Creation learned from its ancestors' calm. Innovation thrived in simplicity.
Harmony returned like a familiar song.
Humanity remembered it was one family. Generosity became the nation's wealth. The country pulsed again with connection.
Hope learned to float.
Peace now traveled barefoot.
What was taken found its way home.
The lens became another form of devotion.
Commerce sang with the tone of memory.
Respect remained Cambodia's truest inheritance.
From the ground up, the nation breathed light.
The future finally smiled back. The once divided learned to kneel together.
Eternity uploaded itself for safekeeping.
Storytelling became the nation's new temple.
It's hard work, but look how beautiful it is already.
Yeah, we're really making a difference here.
Harmony no longer feared change.
Heaven and earth met halfway once more.
Joy occupied spaces once reserved for sorrow.
Hands still spoke the ancient language of creation. Growth became the new revolution.
Freedom finally learned gentleness.
The next generation spelled it correctly.
Past and present celebrated as one heartbeat.
Patriotism sounded like gratitude.
Stillness crowned the day's noise with grace.
Nature applauded quietly. Education completed the circle of rebirth.
The sound of peace carried farther than war ever did.
History survived because someone kept telling it.
The past shone clean under forgiveness.
Kindness became the new currency.
Light no longer had to fight the dark. The river sang again, endless and forgiving.
Cambodia stood reborn, radiant and whole.
Rebirth became the nation's quiet miracle.
From peace and memory, Cambodia became light again.
Every sunrise is the empire remembering itself.
Time breathes gently through the lungs of stone.
Continuity wears orange and walks in silence. Touch completes the circle of centuries.
The Mekong carries yesterday in the rhythm of today.
What was hidden has become eternal again.
The sacred belongs to all who listen softly.
Glory no longer shouts, it glows. The act of living itself became ceremony.
The past entrusted its story to new storytellers.
Shadows dance where light was born.
Sound becomes memory, taking flight.
Identity
found its reflection in peace. History's brush now paints in living color.
The heart of Cambodia beats beneath every harvest.
Heaven hides inside humility.
The sound of the future fills the ruins of the past.
Nature keeps the rhythm when we forget the song.
Grace teaches time how to move again.
Modern light bows to the wisdom of stone.
Technology kneels quietly before eternity.
Joy returned to the river that never stopped flowing.
Light multiplies when shared. Reverence lives in ordinary hands.
The nation found harmony between pride and humility.
The kingdom of gods became the kingdom of hearts. Labor has become prayer once more.
Life proves itself by continuing.
Wonder becomes respect when silence leads.
The night itself has learned to meditate.
From every current rises the story of endurance. The universe still remembers its reflection here. Survival turned to celebration.
Tradition learns to dance again.
Abundance returned quietly, without trumpet or crown.
Every flame is a heartbeat in stone.
Peace calls softly, but is heard everywhere.
The river carries their joy farther than history. The past and present breathe together, endless as light. Memory becomes light, and light becomes Cambodia.